Youcef Bouandel, who joins us live from Doha. He's a professor of political science at Qatar University. Thank you, Professor, for being with us on the program. I want to pick up from where Ashraf left off, saying that Hamas is currently looking for the bodies of those deceased captives. However, many analysts believe that if they're unable to deliver, Israel will use this as an excuse to continue its assault on Gaza. How do you read into Israel's current position?
Well, I think that Israel's current position is very clear. It is using this particular event that Hamas has not been able to give all the remains of the hostages as an excuse to continue its occupation and slaughter of Palestinians. So many Palestinians have been killed over the last a week since the ceasefire, either killed by bullets or hunger and not have access to medical care. About 80% of Gaza has been destroyed, so many bodies under the rubbles, and the know-how, the technical know-how and the machinery needed to look for those bodies is not available. Even though so many countries around the world have offered, including Turkey, for instance, offered their expertise to look for bodies under the rubbles, but Israel has been against that and using this, in my view, as an excuse to continue its occupation and massacre of Palestinians. Hamas has already delivered on some of the bodies. That shows a good intention, wanting to live up to or meet its obligation under the ceasefire. But unfortunately, given the current situation in Gaza, it has not been able to do so for obvious reasons that were outlined a few minutes ago.
Well, we are currently in phase 2 of Trump's deal, and this phase calls for the establishment of a new governing mechanism in Gaza, the formation of a multinational force, and the disarmament of Hamas. I want to talk a bit about the governing force, what it would look like, and how big of a role Palestinians are playing in this process.
Well, I think what Donald Trump wants is basically a new body that overruns Gaza, headed by Tony Blair. And this, we're going back to this old British European colonialism that the West knows best. Obviously, what Palestinians want is to be able to run their own affairs by themselves. I think this is going to be a very sticking point, especially when you mention somebody like Tony Blair with blood on his hand, given what he did with the Americans in Iraq in 2003. He is a hated figure here in the Middle East, and it's going to be very, very sticky. The second point is, as far as disarmament of Hamas, it's going to be, again, in my opinion, very, very difficult to achieve. If you remember 1982, when in Lebanon, when the PLO made a peace treaty with the Israelis and they gave up their arms, we end up with Sabra and Shatila, two massacres of two camps in southern Lebanon. So it's going to be, Hamas had two major cards to use. One is the hostages, which they gave up, and the second one is their weapons. So if they give up, it's going to be, they will be asking for guarantees, obviously, but if they do give up their arms, that will be a continuation of Israel's occupation of Gaza for the years to come.
Well, right now in Gaza, we're witnessing one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes, man-made humanitarian catastrophes in modern history. And for 2 years now, humanitarian experts have called on Israel to stop using starvation as a weapon of war. And even with the ceasefire in place, they're not allowing the amount of aid that they had initially agreed to, which was at least 600 trucks a day, to be allowed into Gaza. Is Israel still somewhat using food as a weapon of war at the moment?
Well, it's very obvious they're using food as a weapon, and not necessarily food only, because when we talk about the humanitarian aid, there's so many sick people in Gaza, so many undernourished people in Gaza, and they need medical supply too to stay alive. So the Palestinians are dying by the day. If they're not killed by Israeli bullets, they're killed by starvation and lack of access to medical care. Obviously, Israel is using the fact that Hamas has not been able to give the remains of the bodies of the death as an excuse to ensure that starvation is used as a weapon against Palestinians. So it's very, very clear for anybody to see.
Okay, Professor Youcef Bouandel, thank you so much for being with us here on the NewsHour and sharing that insight with us.